This video was hard to make. Not because of the underlying issue, no. That was really simple. This state legislator wants to ban making people aware that ICE is in the area through social media posts or whistles. He has said so several times and has filed a bill to make it so. Seems straightforward enough, albeit in contravention of the First Amendment and all common sense. I understand the point of this. I know what this bill does. No, this video was hard to make because he also said it didn't. The man who said it did one thing also said it didn't do that same thing. You can see why this was confusing. So let's see if I, and by extension you, the viewer, can gain some clarity by starting at the beginning. Trump is using ICE as a domestic secret police force to move against immigrants. It must just be a giant oopsie-daisy they keep arresting people based on skin color. Not everyone is taking this line down, which, good, fuck these racists. Activists are using whistles to counter ICE. They blow the whistles when ICE is around, and everyone who might have something to fear from ICE, i.e. almost everyone, hides. They don't just use whistles either. For example, and relevant for this video, awareness of ICE activities can also be spread on social media networks like TikTok, Instagram, or MySpace. Like this post by State Senator Annalise Ortiz, which is where our story begins. Local news, take me away.
Here's how this all started. State Senator Annalise Ortiz posted this on her Instagram page, alerting her followers that immigration agents were gathering near an elementary school. Then Republican State Senator Warren Peterson claimed that broke the law and referred her case for a criminal investigation.
Ortiz posted about ICE activities and Republicans lost their minds. Apparently the act of not immediately complying with an authoritarian police state is one of the gravest crimes they can imagine. Worse than that one. Even worse than that one. Yeah, even worse than that one. Ortiz's crime is worse than all of those put together. So Republicans in Arizona filed an ethics complaint. In that complaint, they asked for Ortiz to be ejected from the legislature. If such an act were not possible, they demanded the highest of all penalties. They wanted her parking space. Authoritarians sometimes rely on threats to cow their opponents, but I'm not sure settling scores the same way as a bucolic college faculty does is the right choice. Regardless, none of that shit happened because sharing the location of ICE or law enforcement or whatever is not legal. It is, in fact, protected by the First Amendment. Duh. Have you ever watched a news story about a live police situation? It's the same principle. Reporters don't get arrested for that, and nothing happened to Ortiz. That embarrassing failure did not stop one member of the legislature from trying to do something about the whole thing. That man is Republican State Senator John Kavanagh.
Hello, I'm State Senator John Kavanagh with another edition of Kavanagh's Corner, my report to my constituents. Well, the topic of today's Kavanaugh's Corner is illegal immigration.
Worst Mr. Rogers ever. Be glad I spared you from the part of Kavanaugh's Corner where he goes to the neighborhood of make-believe and teaches King Friday all the best racial slurs. Anyway, Kavanagh was deeply offended that Senator Ortiz had not been punished for posting the whereabouts of an ICE operation.
Now, this is exposing the location of law enforcement officers, federal law enforcement officers, who are actively enforcing the law. Investigations, picking up suspected illegal entrants, and serving warrants, arrest warrants for illegal entrants. Now, guess what? That's illegal. Now, the left is claiming, along with Senator Ortiz, that they have a First Amendment right to divulge the location of ICE immigration activity. No, you don't.
Which is a strong opinion, not one supported by facts, of course, because if it was a federal crime or even in the neighborhood of a crime, don't you think the Trump administration would have charged her? They seem real trigger-happy about that shit. And since the U.S. government has done, let me look, fuck all to Senator Ortiz, Kavanaugh decided he was going to play sheriff. Kavanagh promised to introduce a bill to specifically target people who publicized ICE operations.
But I'll tell you what I am going to do. I am going to propose a law in January when the Arizona State Legislature comes back into session. And that law will clearly state that it is a criminal act to divulge the location of active law enforcement investigations or arrest operations. We're going to make it a state crime too, not only to reveal local and state police operations, but even federal operations, so that we, our own prosecutors, could go after these people who are trying to allow illegal immigrants, many of them criminal, to evade apprehension, endangering our communities.
Ooh, that's new. Kavanaugh's actually going to write his own law instead of having it handed to him by lobbyists. But the gist is there. Kavanaugh is going to make this illegal. Fast forward to the distant time of February this year, and Senate Republicans issue a press release. Majority Leader Kavanagh introduces legislation to protect law enforcement by banning real-time arrest alerts. In the press release, it states SB 1635 makes clear that tipping off someone to an imminent arrest is not activism, it's interference. The bill is narrowly tailored to target deliberate, real-time warnings intended to hinder or prevent lawful arrests. Okay, so SB 1635 is the bill. Ortiz even gets name-checked in the press release. This is the bill Kavanaugh promised in August. From the official text of the bill itself, a person commits unlawful alerting of another person to avoid arrest if the person with the intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the lawful arrest of the other person knowingly communicates information to the other person that alerts or warns the other person of a real-time, imminent, or ongoing effort to arrest the other person by local, state, or federal law enforcement officer. Alright, this makes sense to me. This would functionally criminalize Ortiz posting about ICE raids and activists from using whistles to warn about them. It even specifically mentions whistles as being one of the modes of communication, so this is the bill. But a weird thing happened between that press release and the bill being passed out of committee. Okay, not that. That was weird, though. It was in that room. Supposed to be in that room. You see, there was supposed to be a committee hearing on SB 1635 at the Senate Judiciary and Elections Committee, but Kavanaugh bailed in the middle of the committee hearing to go appear on a radio show across town. I guess we don't understand the life of a glamorous influencer like Kavanaugh. This delayed the hearing for an hour and a half. When the hearing got started back up again, Kavanaugh had something very strange to say about his bill.
This bill has been misportrayed as making it criminal for people to give general warnings about the presence of immigration enforcement people, or for that matter, regular police in a neighborhood.
Which we've just read the law out loud, so yeah, it actually does do that. In fact, Kavanaugh said that's what the law would do in August, and he issued a press release in February saying, SB 1635 makes clear that tipping off someone to an imminent arrest is not activism, it's interference. So who's misinterpreting again? Kavanaugh goes further, fully repudiating his comments from August.
Putting a text message out, ICE is in the area, blowing whistles, ICE is in the area. None of that behavior is made illegal by this bill. That is First Amendment protected speech. The courts have continuously ruled that. So I'm surprised that people are saying that that's what my bill does.
Oh, now it's a First Amendment protected activity. Weird, I was just hearing some strange little man yap about how it wasn't First Amendment protected activity. Maybe you've heard of him.
Now, the left is claiming, along with Senator Ortiz, that they have a First Amendment right to divulge the location of ICE immigration activity. No, you don't.
So either Kavanaugh's changed his mind on what this bill does, or he's a fucking liar trying to sneak this bill through. I think it's the second, because we can read the damn thing, and it's what he's been saying it will do for months. Actually, we don't even have to do that. When this bill hit the Senate floor, Kavanaugh introduced an amendment to add the word specific person so it wouldn't be generalized and could maybe withstand a constitutional challenge? Probably not. But he introduced the amendment anyway. After the amendment to the bill passed, here's how Kavanaugh described the original version of SB 1635.
When this bill was in its original form, it didn't allow people who just made general alerts when they saw ICE or any police going down the street. But cognizant of the fact that they wanted to make it more individualized, I did an amendment that made it individualized. Yet they still say that it criminalizes somebody just yelling, ICE is in the neighborhood.
Yeah, he went back after changing his story and changed it again. What the fuck, man? And after all that should be enough to kill the bill. The sponsor cannot consistently say what the bill does. It feels like that's an important hurdle to cross before a bill becomes law. What does this bill do? But okay, let's play Kavanaugh's game, because this is a game. What kind of game? Oh, you'll find out in a minute. But what does Kavanaugh think his bill does? Doeth? What does Kavanaugh think his bill doeth?
Now, what does my bill actually make illegal? What my bill makes illegal is something which, by the way, is already illegal in federal law, and which is illegal in, I think, over 20 states. What is illegal in California? What is illegal in New York where I was a cop? What my bill makes illegal is, with an intent that somebody evade arrest, when an arrest is imminent, warning that person so they can get away from the police.
That sounds like something that is already illegal. That's probably already a crime. In fact, if you check the fact sheet for SB 1635 on the state legislature website, and put together by state employees, it actually cites the crime in question. Hindering prosecution, which covers, among other things, warning the person of impending discovery, apprehension, prosecution, or conviction. So yes, it is already covered. Telling someone they are about to be arrested is indeed already a crime. There is no situation where Kavanagh can pretend it isn't covered, and it's ridiculous to even pretend. But pretend our dear Kavanagh does. He says it's not already a crime. Let's see if you can spot what particular game Kavanagh is playing now that he's pretending it's not about arresting protesters and immigrants. It's very subtle, but I think you'll be able to pick up on it.
You heard my scenario about an employee is in a store knowing that there's somebody in the back who maybe is wanted for rape, and the employee sees the police come in and say to the manager, we're here to arrest so-and-so, and the employee sneaks back and says, the cops are here, you better get out of here. Do you think that that should be illegal behavior? You're going to let rapists and murderers go because you're letting people warn them that the police are there, knowing the police are there, letting people evade. That is not the justice system. That is not bringing a person to justice to stand trial to be found guilty or innocent. You're helping criminals escape, and that's despicable. Yeah. So the police have an arrest warrant for a rapist, and the person's in that restaurant, and the police come, say to the manager, we're here to arrest so-and-so. The employee walks in the back and says, the cops are here. The police have a judicially issued arrest warrant. You think that that should not be a crime to warn that person to escape? Should that be a crime? Right? The person, there's a judicial warrant for a rapist in the back room of a restaurant. The police come in, tell the manager, we're here for that person. Another employee hearing that goes back and says, the cops are here, get out of here. Should that be illegal action?
That's cute. Kavanagh's gone and switched his target from immigrants to rapists. That's funny, very clever. For everyone who doesn't know what Kavanaugh has just done, it's a common trope for conservatives to smear immigrants as rapists. To use the most famous example,
when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
You know, it's weird, I say the same thing all the time about Republicans. Anyway, there's no guarantee that Kavanaugh was purposely conflating immigrants with rapists. It could have been accidental. I mean, to make an accusation like that, I'd have to find a case of him doing it previously. And mecca lecca hi, mecca hiney ho, here it is from 2024 during the debate over Prop 314. Here is Senator Kavanagh saying no amount of money is too small to fund border security, although you may be distracted by the other thing Kavanagh attributes to immigration.
Far more expensive than stopping some terrorists or criminals from illegally coming into our border. So, and quite frankly, no amount is too great to stop another 9/11. No amount is too great to stop some previously deported rapists from coming in and victimizing more people.
For the record, all of the 9/11 hijackers were in the country legally. None of them illegally snuck into the country. I'm shocked that Kavanagh didn't already know that, being that he is a retired New York Port Authority cop and all. But yes, Kavanagh has a history of conflating immigrants and rape. It's not uncommon for him. He's in fact even done the same thing in front of Senator Ortiz. From a 2024 debate on Prop 314, here's Kavanagh saying if police don't enforce immigration law, there will be more rape.
And in terms of injuries being caused by police enforcing the law, well, how many kids are going to be dead because people are smuggling fentanyl between the borders and we didn't apprehend them? How many women will be raped? How many women will be into prostitution through human smuggling?
So yes, when Kavanagh said his bill wasn't about immigration, it's about catching rapists, it's not hard to see what he's doing, what game he's playing. To quote one of the most famous works on racism, Sartre's Anti-Semite and Jew, written in 1944, never believe that anti-Semites are unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their replies are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors? I think? Bigots can't be trusted to tell the truth. Words don't mean anything to them, while honest people try to fairly understand the issues of a debate. Kavanaugh, if confronted about his words, would pretend that's not what he's doing, he's just a little birthday boy. Of course, he's not exactly been the most reliable narrator. He can't even figure out what his bill's supposed to be about. So let's step away from this dishonest little toad and towards something a bit more honest. Senator Ortiz, who Kavanaugh has aimed this bill at, gave a very strong statement on why she voted no on the bill, and I would say it's a very honest one. She didn't change her story halfway through, and she addressed why she opposed the bill.
The last speaker said something that really resonated with me. He said, we have a human instinct to protect each other. And that is what we saw in Minnesota. When a nurse and a mother were shot and killed by the United States government for doing nothing more than standing up for their neighbor. This bill specifically targets those people who are putting everything on the line right now to fight back against a fascist government, who are bringing groceries to people who are terrified to leave their homes. And the sponsor, I'm not going to sit here and let the sponsor gaslight us into believing that this is not about those community safety networks, because it absolutely is. He told the newspaper that he knows that there's speech protected by the First Amendment that he wishes he could make illegal. My own speech, things I've shared on my own social media to protect my community from masked, armed, violent paramilitary force that is murdering us, that is hunting us
30
like we
seconds.
are animals in the streets, chasing children in Minnesota, taking a dad outside of the Maryville YMCA in my district. So this is not hypothetical for us. This is not a performative for us. This is not something we can skip committee to go on KTAR and laugh and joke about. Because our communities are dying every single day. They are being torn apart. I have constituents who are naturalized citizens calling me, asking, do I need to carry my documents with me?
Time.
This is a fascist bill and an unconstitutional bill. I vote no.
Thank you.
Yes, Ortiz opposes masked thugs grabbing random people off the street, and by extension this bill. This is a real experience with real people in her district. It's not some fucking fake rapist that she made up like Kavanaugh. Kavanagh, who cannot keep his story straight on the bill, speaks with lurid innuendo when he makes his attacks, and this irritates me more than it should. He bailed on a hearing on his own stupid bill. I do really get upset when people waste my time without showing me courtesy, so this really ticks me off. Funnily enough, Ortiz had to show the head of the committee, Wendy Rogers, where Kavanagh was. This was because Kavanagh didn't even give a fellow Republican the courtesy of a heads up. Anyway, this bill deserves to die most ignobly. I'm History Sock, and I'll see you at the next committee meeting.